Hello, I'm Paul Carroll, and welcome to part 2 of this month's digital darkroom video tutorials on boosting contrast in mono images. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to be looking at using the dodge and burn tools to really increase the contrast locally within our image. What I mean by a localized adjustment is using the dodge and burn tools just to really enhance the contrast in small sections of the image, rather than applying the effect globally. And in this image, we're going to be using the burn tool to really add some more drama to the sky and burn in the lake. And we're also going to be using the dodge tool just to really enhance some of the highlights in this rather dull and grey bush area. Okay, before we actually start any dodging and burning, what we're going to do is we're going to create a copy of our background layer, and we're going to be applying all of the dodging and burning effects to that layer so that we can compare it against our original as we go and see how we're doing. Now, to do this, you're going to need your layers palette open. As you can see, mine's open on the right hand side of the screen here. If yours isn't open, you can activate it by going up to the window menu and going down to layers. So with your layers palette activated, all you need to do is just click on your background layer, and then if you drag the background layer over this duplicate layer icon, which is the first icon underneath the layer blending mode box, then you can see that I've created a copy of my background layer, which is called background copy. And this is the layer that we'll be applying our dodging and burning effects to. Okay, first effect we're going to do is burn in the sky. So over to your toolbox and right down towards the bottom, we want to select the burn tool. And the icon for that is a hand. So just select that from the toolbox. Before we actually start any burning, we need to set up our paintbrush options. And we can do that up here in the options bar. First thing we need to do is make sure that we've got a nice soft edge brush. So I'm going to pick a 300 pixel brush. The next thing we need to set is the range. Now there's 3 ranges that you can burn: the highlights, midtones or shadows. Now it's most likely that we're going to want to burn in the shadows just to darken them, although on occasion you might want to burn in the highlights if, for example, you've lost a little bit of detail in the image and you just want to really bring a little bit of detail back into those burnt out areas. Final setting is the exposure setting. Now if you click on the downward arrow in the exposure box, you can see that we've got a slider there, and the exposure can be set anywhere between 1% all the way up to 100%. Now we want to select quite a low exposure settings, and I'll show you why. Because if we have something high like 100%, if I then use the burn tool, say I've used it on the building there, we've completely lost detail in the building. I'm just going to undo that by pressing Ctrl and Z on the keyboard. So by setting quite a low exposure value, we can build up the effect gradually as we go with using lots of brush strokes. So I'm going to set the exposure to around 5% in this example. Now I've got a nice soft edge brush, but it's a little bit small. You can see by the circle that's on the screen there, it's not really covering the sky. So I'm just going to use the square brackets keys on the keyboard to increase and decrease the brush size as I go. So by pressing the right hand square bracket key, I've just enlarged my brush to around a 700 pixel. That's going to be easier to brush with. So then holding down my left mouse button, I can just sweep across the sky a couple of times. I hope you can see this on the video, but it's just really darkening down the shadows at the top of the image. And that's now given us a nice frame. Now there looks like a little bit of an imbalance between this really dark sky at the top and this rather lighter area here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the range to midtones, and I'm just going to burn in some of these midtone areas here. It won't be affecting the highlights. I'm just holding down my mouse button and using the burn tool again. You can see that I'm just darkening down some of those midtones. It's not affecting the highlights because we've set the range to midtones, so we're still going to get some of this nice white cloud on the left here. That will remain as it is, but it's just going to darken down some of those midtones, give it a little bit more definition in the sky and a bit less of an imbalance between the top. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So we frame the image at the top, but at the bottom, although we've got this foreground interest of the boats and the birds, we're not really framing the image at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dodge and burn the water here, just to really give it some more contrast. So again, with my burn tool selected, back up to the range menu, and I'm going to select the shadows again. I'm going to leave the exposure at 5%, but you can see this brush is much too large, so I'm going to be using the left hand square bracket key just to reduce the brush size. So there we go, something like 175 pixel brush. That looks okay. I'm not going to burn in the boats or the birds themselves, because as you can see we've already got some rather dark shadows in those boats. So I'm just going to work my burn tool around the water just underneath the boats here, and you can see it's happening rather gradually, but I'm just building up that effect, burning in those shadows. And then what we're going to do in a few steps time is we're also going to use the dodge tool, and we're just going to really bring out those highlights in the water as well, and that's going to give us the effect of sort of bouncing light off the water, and just really frame the image at the bottom and create quite a lot more contrast. Okay, I don't want to overdo it, but that's looking pretty good. And you can see if I go over to my layers palette and just deactivate the layer that I've been doing all the burning on so far, we can evaluate the changes that I've made. There we go. Yep, so I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, one final bit of burning just before we move on to the dodge tool, and that's just on the building. I just want to add a little bit more definition to these the windows, particularly on this face of the building here, which is in sunlight. You can see that my 175 pixel brush is just a little bit too large, and I risk spilling into the brushes. So I'm just going to again use the left square key and just go down to, I don't know, something like a 50 pixel brush, and I'm just going to work quite carefully on these windows. And the effect may not really show on the video, but I'm just really darkening those windows just to give them a little bit more definition. I'm going to work a little bit on this section of the tower. There we go, just burning those ledges. There we go. Okay, right, now I need to do some dodging. So back over to the toolbox, and again right down to the bottom where our burn tool is, just use the left mouse key and just click and hold down on the burn tool. We get this fly out menu, and we want to select the dodge tool, which is the middle tool. Again, we need to set up our brush options up here in the options bar. So I'll just click to enter the brushes palette, and again I want a really soft edge brush, so I'm going to select something like a 45 soft edge brush there. And this time we're going to be dodging the highlights. So in the range menu, click on the drop down menu, and from the options select highlights. And again, as you can see, we've got our exposure set to 100%, which is going to be much too high. So I'm just going to drop that down all the way to around 5% again. You want to work with an exposure value, you want to work somewhere between 3 and 6% and build up the effect gradually. So with our brush options set up, again we're just going to go back to the image. Right, that 45 pixel brush is too small, so I'm just going to use the square right hand square bracket key. I'm just going to increase the size around 150 pixel brush. Okay, I've set the range to highlights, and now I'm just going to build up the effect gradually, just to really pick out some of the highlights. There we go, all the way around. Just deactivate my layer, and you can see the effect that's had. I'm just going to burn it and dodge these areas here a little bit more, and a little bit more down in the corner, just all the way around. Again, I'll just deactivate my layer and see how we're doing. Right, I'm quite happy with that in the foreground. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the bushes. You can see that we've got highlights already here and here and up here. We've got some shadows going on down the bottom and around there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those shadow areas. I'm not going to burn them in anymore. I'm just going to work with my dodge tool on these highlight areas and just really boost the contrast between those shadow areas. I'll go over that bird as well. In fact, I'll just go a little bit over all of these birds here just to really give them a little bit more definition. There we go. I'm just going to work my way around there, and as I say, it's a process of building up the effect really gradually rather than rushing in with a very high exposure value and risking burning out your pixels. There we go. I'm just going to work a little bit on this building on the right hand side here, just to give that a little bit of balance with the bit of the building that's in sunlight, and I'm reasonably happy with that. Let's just deactivate the layer, and you can just see we've really added some more definition to those bushes and brought them alive. Okay, so there we go. I really hope you've enjoyed part 2 of this digital darkroom video tutorial on using the dodge and burn tools. Give it a go yourself using the start image off the CD, and then get dodging and burning your own mono images in the future for really punchy, contrasty results. Okay, cheers.